Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 700 and 701 for the 24th to 25th of January. And so let's start off with some frontline changes. And the first one is over at Bohdanivka. So the Ukrainians, so we previously has reported that the Russian forces is attacking and so-called fighting in the center of Bohdanivka, or at least this is claimed by pro-Russian sources, which I did mention that there is no evidence to show that they are in the center. And we now have a kind of proof to invalidate those claims. So this geolocation posted by military summary showed FPV drones, Russian drones, attacking Ukrainian positions within at this position, and this means that the Ukrainian forces basically have actually extended their control over this area here, in the slightly northern half of the center of Bohdanivka. So if you look at Bohdanivka, this is Bohdanivka in the entirety, and this at this very location, you can't really say this is a center. This is actually more towards in the northern part, and in fact, this actually is some kind of a expansion of the Ukrainian position in the north, which means that the Russians at most they are holding only the northern half. They are nowhere close to the center part of Bohdanivka. So this is actually invalidation of those Russian claims. And this poke here, this intersharping, this is not the front line. This is just an indication of this claim. It definitely is not exactly what it was claimed. So moving into the next frontline change is over at the northeast of Novobakhmutivka in the Donetsk Front, and this is Donetsk city, and there is the geolocation of Russian forces attacking in this northeastern part of Novobakhmutivka. And this geolocation of Russian vehicles, if I'm not wrong, these are armored vehicles, shows that the Russian forces basically have at least existed around this area here. This is definitely more or less where the front line is. And so there is this gray zone. There's a overlap in terms of the two different mapping, the Russian and Ukrainian mapping, and with the Russians geolocated here, it is a invalidation of the Ukrainian claims. At least the Russians are now here, at least. So this is the current situation in the northeastern part of Novobakhmutivka. So moving on away from this front line, further just slightly up in the northeast, over at the Avdiivka Front, we have some further updates in the southern part of Avdiivka, where the main breakthrough of the Russian forces currently is happening, and it is invalid. It is a disclaim. So the conceit of the claim by Deep State UA. So the pro-Ukrainian source basically in their mapping shows that the Russian forces have controlled this entire area. So this area here, including here. So this area here is considered under confirmed Russian control, whereas they did indicate that this area here is still pretty much a gray zone, which is a very strange. And this area here is still considered gray zone as well under the Ukrainian mapping. So whereas this is somewhat different from our mapping, because previously it is believed that the Russian forces have broke through in this direction, in this way up. But now the in their mapping, they shows that the Russians is currently in this direction up. They headed up in this way and actually somewhat lost firm control from this Sahan region. So this is the restaurant region. So that's actually very peculiar. And Deep State UA continue to claim that the situation in the south is very strange. So there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces geolocated by Crimea Caprice, of them sending armored vehicles into this northern part of this neighborhood, and they enter in, fire multiple shots at potential Russian positions, and then they withdrew. So this actually confirms the gray zone that is left behind by the Ukrainian side. The Russian mapping currently is still have not changed on my side, because the Ukrainians did not stay. They attacked and they probably left. So that is pretty much corrected in a way that, because we do have the Ukrainian mapping to show the gray zone, so there is no need for the change, because the Russians still have a some kind of position in this area here, unless we see some Ukrainian attack and see them hold position over in the northern part of this neighborhood. So the main thing again is just the the Russian forces basically captured this area, and they have now confirmed by the Ukrainian mapping to have at least taken most of this neighborhood in this area here. So on so that since we since we are here, I want to talk about this story, that how the Russians actually managed to break through and capture this Sarshan, or this restaurant around this area here. So apparently the story coming out from the Ukrainian side and then corroborated by the Russian side is that which is basically this long ass story. I can just summarize it. It's basically that the Russians basically from this position entered a canal or an underground tunnel, which is actually a drainage tunnel, and they progressed along this red line all the way. They slowly cleared the entire tunnel, which is full of rubbish and other debris, for a long time. They only did it all by hand because they cannot use machinery that will alert the Ukrainian forces, and they managed to go through all the way until they cleared the exit of the tunnel, or at least this drainage pipe. And through this pipe, they waited for their time. They managed to plan something out, waited for their time and the time to attack. They appear suddenly from the rear position of the Ukrainian forces and then attack and clear out the Ukrainian forces entrenched positions. And this allowed the Russians to actually break through, and then they also from this position quickly moved out from into the settlement and hold a defensive position in this area here, and probably along this forest line as well. So this is a very interesting story that come out from this war, and I think this is not the first one. The Russians did dig another tunnel somewhere. I can't remember at which position, which then I think it's around here as well. So they are pretty good at digging tunnels around Avdiivka region and managed to break through a defensive position. So this is this is just an interesting story that came out. So no need for me to talk too much about it. It is very long. They have two versions of the story. We have one from Deep State UA and another one from a Russian source that talk in details about all these things. So so that's about it. It's just part of war, but it is an interesting breakthrough that they managed to do this. And according to the Ukrainians, the Ukrainians have counterattacked and somewhat pushed the Russians away from this position. So we will continue to monitor and see what's the actual situation in this area. There is a lot of fog of war in this area, so things is rather unclear, because the Ukrainians are constantly counter-attacking in this area to recapture or to push back the Russians from this new foothold that they managed to acquire. So we shall talk more about this later. And on the strategic side, there is a Russian plane, a transport plane, Il-76 transport plane that got shot down over Belgorod. So accordingly, this was shot down by a Iris-T air defense system, or perhaps it might be even a Patriot system. There is the firing position is actually over here at Lipsy, in the Lipsy region, according to Ryba. From this position, they fired a missile and hit the Russian jet over the airspace of Yablonovo. So Yablonovo, just off here. The plane is supposedly flying towards Belgorod in order to do some prisoner exchange, or at least this is the story come out from the Russian side. And the Ukrainians shot down the plane, claiming that the plane is carrying out delivering S-300, at least according to some media. And I have no idea how they even ever know this operational secret, that a plane is carrying S-300 missiles. So that is actually pretty weird. So far, there is still no photographic or video evidence of the prisoners. Allegedly, there are 65 Ukrainian prisoners, POW, the prisoners of war, that is on board. So far, the plane crashed not from a very high altitude, and it burst into flames, and it's unclear if such an explosion and crash if we are able to see any victims or the bodies of the dead soldiers. So but I have to say objectively, I didn't see any of such video and photos, so it cannot be corroborated if there is indeed this kind of passengers on board. And but still, Russian soldiers and pilots died from this attack. So no, the Ukrainians claim that the Russians deliberately not informed them about the flying of the aircraft that may contain passengers of POWs to fly towards Belgorod, and they claim that this is something to shoot them down for. And they are claiming that the Russians are using this situation to blame them and discredit them in the international eyes. And I find that a bit ridiculous, because they lost a very expensive aircraft, and also the pilot that is involved, the crews that is involved. So a little weird to say that is the case. And according to the Russian information, there is actually 2 planes that is flying in this direction. So one of the plane is carrying 80 POWs, and it turned around after the first plane got hit by the Ukrainian surface-to-air missile. So yeah, and there is the name list that came out. The name list was corroborated to be fully accurate, as in these are all real people coming out from the Russian side. But however, of course, like I said again, there's no way to corroborate if these people are all on board. It's the same situation with the death of Prigozhin, the boss, the previous leader of the Wagner private military contractors. Nobody can really tell if he's really dead, or no, in this aircraft situation, is there really 65 or even up to 80 people who are killed by this air crash. So anyway, we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. So over at the Kharkiv Front, since we are reporting information on the Kharkiv Front, there is some geolocation of Russian artillery shelling over in the area, over at this place called the Nesterianka, over at north of Vostochny, and also over at this border town of Verterinane. So basically, the Russians are shelling the border region, and this is a continuation of the pressure that the Russians are putting on the Ukrainians over in the Kharkiv Front, and which threatens to break out. The previous information about Russians making a possible breakthrough of Bohdanivka is now fake news, I would say, because this information published by Military Chronicles is totally not reported by anyone that from my primary sources over the past 2 days. So the alleged Russian push over this area here, creating some kind of stronghold or foothold to allow them to continue to push out, or at least create a buffer zone, is fake news. So this is also why Military Chronicles is actually not in my primary sources, because for good reasons, because I cannot have a channel in my primary sources that post very unverified information. This is actually not very good. So we move over to the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, the Russian forces continue their Kupyansk offensive, with fighting reported over at Sinkivka, Avdiivka, and Berestove. The Ukrainians are counter-attacking over at Sinkivka as usual. So the fighting mainly, the clash is currently in this position. The information about fighting at Avdiivka is from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The one at Berestove is by Ryba. We are not exactly sure what's the situation right now in these areas here. I believe so the fighting around here is something to do with the Russian capture of Kreminna, which was captured over on the 20th of January. The Russians previously was reported to be pushing southwest towards Berestove, and so this push up north from Kreminna probably is now heading towards the Avdiivka, which is why we are seeing this report of the fighting. We shall continue to monitor and see how this progress from this area here. We move south to the Svatove Front. Over the Svatove Front, we have two information of fighting. One is over at Stemakivka, the other one is over at Makiivka. The Ukrainians are also counter-attacking over at Makiivka. So this is the strategic situation over the Svatove Front. The one at Stemakivka maybe have some relations to the Kupyansk offensive, but we are not very sure, because information at Novobakhmutivka is always very vague. So as you can see, the first report is on the 25th, which is the past 24 hours. We shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. Over in the Kreminna Front, this is Kreminna city, and at the Kreminna Front, the Russian forces continue their offensive in this area here, with fighting reported at Terny, Toske, Dibrova, Serbiansky Forestry towards Kharkivka, and Ukrainians are counterattacking over at Terny, Yampolivka, over at Dibrova. And this is the current strategic situation over the Kreminna Front. There is nothing particularly special to report. There is geolocation of Russian forces over at this position within the mapping, showing that our mapping is tentatively still accurate, is still correct. And so that's all from the Kreminna Front. We move into the Siversk Front. So this is the Siversk Front, and at the Siversk Front, the Russian forces are currently only attacking over at Bilohorivka. The rest of the front line remains very quiet. Over at Bilohorivka, the information suggests that the Russians are pushing from the north as well as from the east, and they are also pushing in the nearby in the Serbiansky Forestry towards Kharkivka, as per reported over in the Kreminna Front report. And the Ukrainian forces are currently holding position. I believe that they are also reported that they are attacking from the south. Fighting was reported at a chalk quarry around in the southern part of Bilohorivka. We shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. If the Russians is going to push through at all costs, or doing their best or whatnot to capture Bilohorivka and bring the front line into the Donetsk Oblast. So currently, this is one of the places where the Ukrainians have a foothold within the Luhansk region. We move on away from the Bilohorivka region into the Bakhmut Front. Over the Bakhmut Front, in the northern flank of the Bakhmut Front, Russian forces are attacking Vasyukivka, at Bohdanivka and at Ivanivsky. The Ukrainian forces are not known to be counterattacking in this area here. So Vasyukivka is actually very strategically important if the Russians can capture it, but tentatively this is a one-off. This is the first attack in a long time. The last attack was reported in late November last year, so it's quite some time ago, a few months ago. Over at Bohdanivka, as I mentioned in the frontline changes update or the report, the Russians are attacking, but they are not in the center of Bohdanivka. So the fighting is probably in the surrounding area, and there is multiple geolocations around as well. There's Ukrainian forces geolocated in the north, getting hit by the RBU 6000. So this RBU 6000 is very interesting. It's a multiple rocket launcher. However, this system is actually used on the Navy ship. That's why they write naval jet bomb launcher, because this system is actually used to launch anti-submarine rockets to act as depth charges. So it is very unusual to see mounted on armored vehicles and use it as artillery. So I'm not sure it is something to do with expanding those ammunition that is getting old, and they are trying to build new ones and they want to expand away the old ones. So they are using it as multiple launch rocket system, which will still work because it's still explosive and it can still kill people. So yeah, or you can go by a more pro-Ukrainian opinion that the Russians are running out of ammunition and they are using whatever they can. So that could also be the story. Another frontline change is over near the cemetery, with the Russian FPV drone attacking Ukrainians over just off the cemetery region. So but all of them confirms our front line, so that's pretty good. Another geolocation is Russian using the TOS-1A, the thermobaric missiles or rockets hitting Ivanivsky itself. So the pressure is definitely pretty heavy around this front line in the northern part of Bakhmut Front. In the rear, there is some Lancet strikes on Ukrainian vehicles over in the rear in Chasivya. One of them hitting artillery system. The other one is a tank. So so it's not safe in the rear as well. Moving into the southern flank, the strategic situation remains very similar as per the last SITREP. which is 2 days ago, the Russians are attacking Klishchiivka as well as Andriivka. We did not hear reports about Bohdanivka. Ukrainian forces are counter-attacking over Klishchiivka itself, and that's about it. So there's nothing particularly special about this southern part of the Bakhmut Front. There is a geolocation of another lancet strike south of Stepovsky. So this is a continuation of all the reports of lancet attacks in the Bakhmut Front. So this is actually pretty concerning. Over at the Niu-York Front, the Russian forces reported that the Ukrainians attacked over at the Sumy region. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. The fighting over at Sumy is always very vague, so we do not know what exactly is happening. So moving away from the Niu-York Front into the Avdiivka Front. At the Avdiivka Front, or Avdiivka Front, which I like to call it, the Russians are attacking over at the Novobakhmutivka region at Stepove in the south. While the Ukrainians are counter-attacking in the south as well, the Russians are also attacking Pervomaiske and Nevelske as usual. So this is the strategic situation currently right now. The offensive situation looks a bit more toned down, as the focus is now purely on the southern part of Avdiivka. And of course, the outer pincer continues in this region here. We shall continue to monitor to see how this progress. Otherwise, other than the information that I've already told you about the southern part, where the Ukrainians are counter-attacking, the Russians having a strong foothold now, which looks nothing like something that I shouldn't say on YouTube. The Ukrainians are attacking in this area here. So, you know, yeah, it is also still not looking like what you are saying there is. And there is also an interesting report from Ryba saying that there is Ukrainians are counter-attacking in the southeast of Avdiivka. I wonder if this is an attack towards the vineyard region. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. And moving on away from the the Avdiivka Front, we move into the Donetsk Front. This is the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, we have over at the Marinka region, the standard strategic situation over in this area here. We're fighting reported towards Georgievka, towards Boyeda, as well as at Novobakhmutivka. And based on this geolocation, we can clearly see that there is fighting over in the northeast. The Ukrainians are reportedly counter-attacking over in the south. Sorry, this is a geolocation of the front line. I used the wrong icon. This is actually a geolocation, and this geolocation shows that the Ukrainians are attacking over in the southwestern part of Novobakhmutivka, and there is other geolocation as well, like the Russians tanks operating just off Boyeda in the south of Marinka. There is another Ukrainian position getting hit by Russian artillery systems, and as well tanks. In the rear, just off Antonivka, there is lancet strikes on cluster munition shelling over on Ukrainian artillery position north of Katerinivka or Antonivka. And then south of Paraskovievka or southwest of Novobakhmutivka, we have this Ukrainian attack being geolocated. The front line did not change because the attack was repelled. It was a Russian frontline position, so this confirms our front line. And we move further on. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry over in the Voleda region reported that they defended some attacks southeast of Vodian. So this position is Vodian, and if southeast, the Russians allegedly attacking in this area here. We shall continue to monitor and see how this progress, if this is something serious. So let's continue to monitor and see. Moving on away from the Voleda region, over in the westernmost part of the Donetsk Front, the Russian forces are reportedly attacking south of Zolota Nyva. So and there is a geolocation of lancet strike in the north of Zolota Nyva. Another self-propelled artillery system, another artillery system getting hit by the lancet over in the north of Zolota Nyva. The Russians are attacking that from the south, and we shall continue to monitor. This fighting over at Zolota Nyva might be a consistent assault operation or military operation by the Russians, because we are seeing rather starting to get a bit consistent the fighting around this area from the 12th Then 17th, now we have 24th and 25th. Both days we are seeing the attack coming from the south of Zolota Nyva. So this is getting a bit more concerning, I would say. Over at the Zaporizhzhia Front. So this is the Zaporizhzhia city, and this is Zaporizhzhia Front. Velika Novosilka sector, Huyaipole sector, Orikhiv sector, and the Kayamsky sector. So we go to the Velika Novosilka sector. This Velika Novosilka, the Russians are reportedly attacking Staromayorsky and on the western part of Staromayorsky. So the fighting continues over in this area here. There is a weird report again by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry about fighting on the eastern part of Staromayorsky. East of Staromayorsky, which don't make sense because the east of Staromayorsky is Uruzhaine. There is no east of Staromayorsky. So I wonder if this is a typo. And we move on away from the Velika Novosilka sector. We have nothing over at Huyaipole. The fighting reported at Chervony did not reappear again. We move on into the Orikhiv sector. So this Orikhiv sector, at the Orikhiv sector, the Russian forces are continuing their counteroffensive over at Robotine. We're fighting at Robotine. In the southeastern part of Robotine and at Verbove. The southeastern part of Robotine was reported, you see southeast of Robotine, reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So it's something unusual, I would say. So southeast, so yeah, this is one of these more unusual ones. We shall continue to monitor and see how this progress. There is geolocation of Russian forces attacking Ukrainian positions. At this position, exactly where our front line is actually around this area here. So we shall continue to monitor and see if this leads to anything, or if this report of this geolocation is actually the same thing as this report from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Maybe they are related. Ukrainian forces continue to be monitored along this tree line on the western part of Robotine, and this continue to confirm that the Russians did not manage to take over this tree line around this area here. The Ukrainians are still at this position, and which means that the Russians are pretty much doing positional warfare, because the front line have not really changed much in a long time. And further up over at Nesterianka, this is getting very, very concerning. After 20th to 21st, there was fighting at Nesterianka. We now see 23rd to 24th, there is fighting over at the northern part of Nesterianka. We don't have any reports on the 25th, which means the past 24 hours, we have no reports of Russians attacking at Nesterianka. But if this continues to be reported, then we might actually see this as a new offensive action by the Russian forces. And this, like I mentioned in the previous SITREP, might indicate some kind of a bigger offensive moving forward. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces on the western part of Nesterianka does show that the front line have not really changed in this area here. So maybe the report of Nesterianka fighting is probably off this trench line. So this could also be represented as Nesterianka. So we shall wait and see how this progress over at this sector. Avdiivka was actually mentioned in the Russian Defense Ministry report, but no, nothing much. It's probably some shelling over at this position in the northwest of Orikhiv. Over at the Kayamsky sector, this Kayamsky, there is fighting reported at Stepove. So according to the Russian Defense Ministry, they reported the Russians attacking Stepove. So this comes after the reports of fighting at Petikaki. I'm not sure if they captured Petikaki in order to attack Stepove, or they are attacking coming from another direction. But that's actually very, very interesting. So we shall wait and see. As per the previous report in the last SITREP on the 21st to 23rd was at Petikaki. So Russian forces over 3 days fighting for Petikaki. Capturing it isn't a far-fetched thing. Moving further up north, attacking Stepove does make sense, but it could also be just simply coming from the southeast of Stepove. We move on to the last front line over at the Kherson Front. So this is Kherson City, and this is Kherson Front, or the Southern Front, which I usually call it. The Ukrainian forces continue to hold a position at Krinky, and the Russian forces continue to attack over the past 2 days. The last report from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry is a bit funny. They is a bit against the trend. They say that the Ukrainian forces has continued to expand the bridgehead. So this is a bit weird. I'm not sure what does it mean, because bridgehead may also refer to another front line. It could be this area here, because this is where the bridge is, or it could be just south of Dachi, because this is also where the bridge is. So there's two bridges over this area here, so expanding this area does make sense. But because they are not clear about their information, we do not know where exactly this attack is. Currently I put it at Krinky because the information is probably talking about Krinky. We shall wait and see how this goes. Ryba reported the Ukrainians did try to reinforce the position at Krinky, and it was disrupted by Russian artillery systems. So we shall wait and see if this Krinky beachhead continue to hold or not. But this is getting very, very expensive for the Ukrainians. And talking about expensive, there is Lancet strike hitting Ukrainian Grad launchers over at Limansi, over this area here, Limansi. And so there is also multiple reports like airstrikes over at Zimka. There's this one is Russian probably artillery strike over just off Novobakhmutivka, and another one just southwest of Kherson city of FPV drone hitting Ukrainian troops. So this positional war continues over at this Kherson Front, and yeah, this is about it. So this is the summary for the day of 700 to 701 for the 24th to 25th of January. Do press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.